Are they waiting for you to make a move? You've noticed it. There's something about your interactions that makes you wonder, is this something or am I imagining it? Most people don't come out and say what they want, but they'll show you instead through small, repeated, specific behaviors. Today, I'm going to walk you through the exact signs that someone isn't just being friendly, they're actually waiting for you to make the first move. And we're going to go through some scenarios from someone that you've just laid eyes on to someone that you know and talk to, but you're not sure how they feel. By the end, you'll know whether it's time to act, wait, or walk away. First, let's start with the difference between attraction and an invitation to act. Attraction and invitation are not the same thing. Someone can find you attractive and still never give you an opening. Maybe they're shy, maybe they've been hurt before, maybe they just don't know how to signal interest without feeling exposed. Attraction on its own tells you they like something about you. It doesn't tell you that they're ready for you to act on it. An invitation is different. It's a pattern of behavior that creates space for you to step in. It looks like consistent effort, small moments engineered to bring you closer, and little gaps left open for you to fill. When someone's genuinely waiting for you to move, they're not just enjoying your company, they're building opportunities and they're hoping that you're going to notice them. That distinction matters because the rest of this video is built around spotting invitation, not just attraction. So keep that in mind as we go through each sign. Sign number 1, they keep finding reasons to spend time with you. Watch how often plans seem to happen around you almost by accident. They mention an event and somehow you're going too. They need help with something small and you're the one they ask. They suggest grabbing food after a shared activity, even though no one was hungry 5 minutes earlier. Now, none of these moments can look significant by themselves, but together they tell a different story. People create reasons to be near what they want to be near. And if someone keeps engineering situations where the two of you end up together, they're not doing it by accident. They're doing it because being around you has become a priority and they're hoping that you'll eventually close that gap that they've been opening. The next sign is that they start more conversations than they used to. Pay attention to who reaches out first. Early on, maybe you were the one carrying the conversation. Then something shifts. They start texting first. They bring up something random from earlier in the day just to have a reason to talk to you. Initiating contact takes a small amount of courage, even in something as simple as a text. Every time someone starts a conversation, they're accepting the risk that you might not respond in the way that they hope. So if they keep taking that risk with you specifically, it usually means that you've become someone that small risk is worth over and over again. Another sign is that they reply quickly and they keep conversations going. Speed and effort are two different signals, but both of them matter here. Some people always reply fast because they're just glued to their phone. Other people will take hours to respond to everyone except you. Try and look at the pattern rather than a single instance. So if someone treats your messages differently from how they treat messages from other people, that's worth noticing. Quick replies show that you matter enough to interrupt whatever they were doing. Long, thoughtful responses show that they're putting genuine effort into the exchange rather than just filling up space. When both of these things happen consistently, it usually means that the conversation feels important to them, not just convenient. Another sign is they find excuses to message you. Some messages exist purely to keep a contact alive. A song that reminded them of something you said, an article related to a random topic that you mentioned once, a meme that only makes sense because of an inside joke between the two of you. These messages rarely carry urgent information. Their real purpose is connection, not communication. If someone regularly reaches out with no clear reason other than wanting to talk to you, that's a strong sign that they're thinking about you more often than casual friendship would require. The next sign is they remember the little things that you tell them. This one deserves real attention because it's one of the most reliable signs on this entire list. Our brains don't store information equally. We remember details about people who matter to us and then we let the rest fade. If someone remembers your coffee order from months ago, the name of your childhood pet, or some offhand comment that you made about a stressful week at work, that's not coincidence. That's their brain treating you as significant enough to hold on to. When someone brings up something that you mentioned once in passing, weeks later, unprompted, pay attention to that. That kind of memory, it doesn't happen with people who don't occupy space in someone's mind. The next sign is they ask more personal questions. Surface level conversation is easy and low risk. Personal questions require a little more investment because they invite a real answer instead of just a polite one. If someone starts asking about your family, your past relationships, your goals, or what you actually want out of life, They're not just passing time anymore. They're trying to understand you on a deeper level. People generally don't invest that kind of curiosity in someone that they see as purely casual. Curiosity like that is usually a sign that they're picturing a future that includes knowing you better. The next sign is they want to know whether you're single. Now, this sign tends to show up in indirect ways. So they might ask about your weekend plans in a way that fishes for whether someone else is involved. They might bring up an ex casually just to see how you react. A mutual friend mentions almost too casually that someone was asking about your relationship status. People don't usually ask this question for no reason. If someone's relationship status wasn't relevant to them, they're not going to bother finding out. When someone's trying to find out information about whether you're available, it's usually because your availability matters to their plans, even if they haven't directly said so. Another sign is they bring up dating or relationships around you. Sometimes people test the emotional temperature of a situation before they're going to commit to anything. Bringing up dating in general, mentioning what they're looking for in a partner, or asking your opinion on relationships, they can all be ways of gauging your reaction without exposing themselves directly. So if someone regularly steers conversations towards dating and relationships when you're together, they might be trying to see how you respond, or they're hoping that you'll pick up on the topic and take it somewhere more direct. Either way, it's rarely a random subject choice. Our next sign is that they find reasons to touch you. Physical contact carries meaning even when it's brief. A hand on your arm while they laugh at something you said, sitting slightly closer than necessary. These moments are usually small enough to explain away individually, but the pattern is what tells the real story. People don't accidentally create physical closeness with someone repeatedly unless part of them wants that closeness to exist. If touch keeps happening in ways that go slightly beyond what a purely platonic interaction would call for, that's often a quiet way of testing how you're going to respond without saying anything out loud. Our next sign is they prioritize you in group settings. Group environments are a really great place to observe real behavior because people often relax their guard around others and their attention naturally goes where it wants to go. So notice who they sit near, notice who they talk to first when they walk into a room, notice who they return to after a conversation with someone else ends. If someone consistently chooses you over other options in a group, even when no one's paying attention to what they're doing, that's a strong indicator of where their real interest lies. Next sign, they make time for you even when they're busy. Everyone has limited time, and how people spend it says a lot about their priorities. If someone's stretched thin with work, family, or other obligations, but they still find a way to fit you in, that tells you something important. People hardly ever make room in a packed schedule for things that don't matter to them. If someone consistently prioritizes you, even during their busiest stretches, it usually means that you occupy a place on their priority list that's higher than casual friendship would explain. Next sign, they seem genuinely happy to see you. Watch their face in the moment before they notice you, before they've had time to think about how they're supposed to react. A quick smile, raised eyebrows, a shift in posture, like they're suddenly more alert. That instant, unfiltered reaction is really hard to fake convincingly over time. And if someone consistently lights up when they see you, even if it's in small, subtle ways, it's usually a genuine and honest signal because it happens before their conscious mind has a chance to control it. Next sign, they tease you or have inside jokes with you. Playful teasing creates a kind of intimacy that ordinary conversation doesn't. Inside jokes work the same way, because they build a shared language that excludes everyone else. If someone regularly teases you in a lighthearted way, or they reference a joke that only makes sense between the two of you, they're building a private world that belongs to just your connection. People generally reserve that kind of playful closeness for relationships that feel special to them, not for interactions that they consider to be purely surface level. Our next sign, they give you opportunities to spend time alone together. Group hangouts are safe. One-on-one time requires a bit more intention because it removes the safety net that other people provide. If someone keeps engineering situations where it's just the two of you, whether that's grabbing coffee, going for a walk, or staying behind after everyone else has left, they're creating space for something more personal to happen. People don't usually manufacture alone time with someone that they see purely as a friend. Next sign, they drop hints about things that you could do together. Sometimes people won't ask you directly, but they'll plant the idea and wait to see if you pick it up. They mention a restaurant that they wanted to try in a tone that implies you specifically. They might bring up an event that's happening soon and pause slightly, maybe as if leaving room to suggest you going together. These hints function as low-risk invitations. If the idea doesn't land, they haven't technically asked for anything and they can't be rejected outright. If someone keeps dropping suggestions like that and waiting for your reaction, they're likely hoping that you'll be the one to turn that hint into an actual plan. The next sign is that they seem slightly disappointed when you don't take the hint. This is one of the more revealing signs because it shows up in a moment that they can't fully control. So if you miss an opening that they created, whether that's suggesting a follow-up plan or not picking up on a hint, watch their reaction. A small shift in energy. It might be a slightly quieter response, a small pause before the conversation moves along. That flicker of disappointment usually means that the hint wasn't casual. They wanted something specific to happen, and when it didn't, part of them felt it. Now let's talk about why people usually don't make the first move themselves. At this point, you might be wondering, why would someone go through all of this effort instead of just simply saying what they want? The truth is, making the first move exposes a person to direct rejection, and most people are wired to avoid that kind of vulnerability wherever possible. Hints, gestures, and even small invitations allow someone to test the water without putting their ego fully on the line. If you don't respond the way that they hoped, they can quietly retreat and pretend nothing happened. Past experiences play a role too. Someone who's been rejected before, they might have learned to protect themselves by never stating their interest outright. Other people, they just feel more comfortable in the responder role rather than the initiator role. None of this means that their interest isn't real. It just usually means that they're waiting for enough safety to feel confident enough to act. And in a lot of cases, that safety looks like you making the first move instead. Signs you're misreading friendliness as romantic interest. It's worth pausing here because not every warm gesture means what you might want it to mean. Some people are naturally affectionate, curious, and engaged with almost everyone in their life. If someone treats you the same way that they treat their other friends, their family members, or their co-workers, that's simply a personality, not a message that's meant specifically for you. The real sign isn't in any single behavior. It's in the difference between how they treat you and how they treat everyone else. If someone remembers small details about you but not about their other friends, if they make time for you specifically when they're too busy for others, if the teasing and inside jokes exist only between the two of you, that's when a pattern becomes meaningful. Context and comparison matter more than any single warm gesture on its own. Now let's talk about the biggest mistakes people make when someone likes them. The most common mistake is waiting for certainty that will probably never come. Some people convince themselves that they need one more undeniable, unmistakable sign before they're willing to act. And that sign rarely arrives because most attraction shows up in small, ambiguous moments rather than big dramatic confessions. Another common mistake is overanalyzing every interaction until the joy of connection disappears entirely. Constant interpretation can drain the natural energy out of something that used to feel easy and fun. The third mistake is assuming that if someone really liked you, they'd just make it obvious. That assumption ignores how much fear and self-protection shape human behavior. Plenty of people who genuinely like someone still hold back simply because vulnerability feels risky, not because their interest isn't real. Here's how to test the waters without making things awkward. If you're not ready to make a bold move but you want more clarity, there are some low-risk ways that you can test the situation. Suggest a plan that's slightly more personal than usual and just watch how they respond. Do they seem enthusiastic or a little bit hesitant? Bring up a topic related to dating in a casual way and notice their reaction. You can increase the warmth in your own behavior slightly through more eye contact, more playful teasing, or a little bit more one-on-one conversation, and then see whether they lean into it or whether they pull back. These small tests give you real information without requiring a full declaration. They let you gather data before committing to anything bigger. Now, how to make the move in different scenarios. The right approach depends heavily on where you're starting from. Someone that you talk to every day needs a different opening than someone that you've only ever made eye contact with across a room. Let's go through some common situations. Scenario 1, you already talk regularly. If you've built a real conversation history, you don't need a big dramatic gesture. You just need to shift the tone slightly and see how they respond. For example, try suggesting something a little more personal than your usual hangouts. Instead of, we should catch up sometime, try, I want to take you somewhere that I think you'd actually love. Just the two of us. That second version, it's specific and slightly more intentional, and it gives them a real decision to make rather than just a vague suggestion to ignore. You can also test things verbally. Something like, I feel like I look forward to talking to you more than I probably should. That said with a smile is low pressure enough to laugh off if needed, but clear enough to register if they're paying attention. If it works, they're going to lean into that conversation rather than deflect it and change a topic. They might tease you back or ask a follow-up question or just say yes without overthinking it. If it doesn't work, they'll likely redirect the conversation or respond in a friendly but very neutral way. Either way, you're going to have your answer without either of you needing to have an awkward direct conversation about it. Scenario 2 is you've interacted a little but you're not close. So maybe you've spoken a handful of times, you've shared a class, a mutual friend group, maybe a few conversations at the gym. In this case, the goal is to create one clear moment of real conversation rather than jumping into something big. Find a natural reason to talk to them one-on-one, even if it's brief. Ask a genuine question about something specific to them, not generic, like, how's it going? Something like, didn't you mention you were working on something for a big project? How's that going? That shows that you are actually listening to the last time you spoke, and it gives them a reason to see you as someone who pays attention. If that goes well, you can follow up later with a low-pressure invite. I'm heading to that new coffee place everyone's talking about this weekend. You should come. That works well because it's easy to say yes and it doesn't require a big commitment. If it works, they'll usually respond quickly and with genuine interest. If it doesn't, you'll likely get a slow reply, a vague excuse, or no follow-through at all. If that happens, don't chase it, just let it go and put your energy elsewhere. Scenario 3 is you've never actually spoken. This is a situation that requires the most courage because you're starting from zero, but it's also often much simpler than people think because there's no history to overthink. The best approach here is just a short, genuine opener, not some rehearsed line. Try commenting on something that's real in the moment. I've seen you here a few times. I finally wanted to actually introduce myself. That works well because it's honest and slightly vulnerable, which tends to land better than anything that's overly polished. Keep the first interaction brief. You're not trying to have a deep conversation on the spot. You're trying to open a door. Introduce yourself. Ask one real question and see how the energy feels. If it works, they'll usually engage you warmly, they'll ask you something back, and they'll make it easy for the conversation to keep going. If it doesn't, they'll likely give short answers and short body language, so crossed arms, minimal eye contact, and no real questions in return. If you get that response, take it as useful information and move on without taking it personally. Not every interaction is going to lead somewhere, and that's fine. Scenario 4, you see each other often, but it's in a professional or shared space setting. So that could be co-workers, classmates, or people that you cross paths with that require a little bit more care because the ongoing relationship matters even if romance doesn't happen. Here, subtlety works best. Suggest something that's outside the usual setting, but frame it casually. A few of us are grabbing drinks after this. You should come. That's a first safe step that lets you observe how they respond in a lower stakes group setting before trying anything more direct. If that goes well and the energy feels right, you can then follow up with something more specific later, like asking them to lunch, just the two of you. If it works, they'll usually make time for it and the conversation will naturally shift into more personal territory. If it doesn't, they'll likely keep things strictly professional or group oriented, and that's your signal to respect the boundary and keep things comfortable rather than push further. Here's what to do if it works. Don't panic and slow everything down out of nervousness, but don't rush it either. Keep showing the same interest that got you here and let things build naturally from there. The moment that you just made was an opening. What happens next depends on continuing to show up in the same way that got their attention in the first place. Here's what to do if it doesn't work. This is where a lot of people struggle because rejection, even a small or ambiguous one, it stings. The healthiest response is to accept the information at face value rather than searching for some hidden explanation. If someone doesn't respond the way that you hoped, resist the urge to try again immediately or to read their behavior differently than what actually happened. Give yourself permission to feel disappointed, then move forward. One unclear response doesn't define your worth, and clarity, even disappointing clarity, is almost always better than staying stuck in uncertainty. When should you make a move? If most of the signs that we've covered have shown up consistently over time and you've tested the waters without any negative reaction, that's usually a strong signal it's time to act. Waiting indefinitely for someone else to take the risk often means that both of you stay stuck in that same holding pattern, sometimes for months or even years. If the evidence is there and the moment feels right, taking a clear, low-pressure step forward is usually the healthiest way to finally get an answer. When should you wait? On the other hand, if the signs are inconsistent or if you notice that they treat lots of people the way they treat you, it might be worth giving things a little bit more time before acting. Waiting also makes sense if you know that they're dealing with something significant in their life, like a recent breakup, a stressful work period, or just a difficult personal situation. Timing matters just as much as interest does, and a good moment can easily get ruined by poor timing. The simple rule that makes the decision easier. Here's a rule I'm going to leave you with. Look for consistency, not intensity. One grand romantic gesture means far less than small repeated patterns held steadily over time. If someone keeps showing up for you in quiet, consistent ways week after week, that's usually more trustworthy than any single dramatic moment. And if you've seen that consistency clearly, stop waiting for permission that isn't coming. Sometimes the only sign left to look for is the courage to create one yourself. I hope you found that helpful, and if you liked it, please subscribe. That small action helps me to continue creating videos just like this.